Hey, Mike. How's it
Hey,
going?
very
Hey,
good.
Alyssa.
How are you?
Good. Hi,
Hello.
Jennifer.
Good to see you. Good to see you,
Kelly,
Irene. Hey,
Naomi.
us all ready to go and chat. Well, good afternoon or morning to you, depending on where you are. How are you today? Good. Excellent. Yeah, it's fine. Lauren, I'm glad you're here. Lauren's like, it just answers right away. She leaves her mic on, she answers right away. The rest of you turn it on, you shut it off. That's good. All right.
My
I'm trying
mic
to
was
have a
on. I just didn't.
conversation, you know.
My mic was on. I just didn't have anything to say because I'm also trying to install on this device over here to my side that no one can see.
What kind of device? What are you doing over there?
I'm trying to put Grid 3 on a device for a student to try out.
Nice.
Yeah. It's not your typical kiddo who has communication needs. It's like 150% access to his world. So our role is to help get the right data so that the insurance company doesn't balk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds good. That's good. What's your plan with this kiddo? What's the trial period? Now I'm going to ask you all questions about your stuff over there.
We have done on and off trials last year, so this is kind of this last little ditch to get data on Grid because of what it can do for us for environmental control that the other softwares we've tried just won't. So I don't know that we have an established, must do X amount of whatever. Our struggle is he's a kid in a reg ed classroom who, for all intents and purposes, relies on everybody to do everything. And we don't want that to stay his life because he's pretty smart and spunky little guy.
Nice. And I hear you say environmental control too.
Yes.
What are you looking to control?
Well, at home, very different than at school, but
Yeah.
at school, I want him to have the job of turning the lights off. I want him to, have the job of turning the projector on and off for the teacher. Like there's lots of different ways that we can build in, like he has jobs just like everybody else. At home, of course, it's things like the TV and stuff like that he can annoy his brothers with.
That sounds perfect. Yeah, I was curious as to what you were environmentally controlling at school. That was where I was going. I was like, what are you going to do in the classroom? That's kind of fun. All right, that's cool. Yeah, those are great ideas.
That's my plan.
Yeah, that's a good plan. I like that plan. Awesome. All right, we've learned everything there is about Alyssa now.
That's it. That's all I'm doing.
That's her whole world right now. That's all.
If only you guys.
If only is
true.
Right.
I'm adding kids to Bookshare and Learning Ally at the same time as I'm imaging an iPad at the same time as I'm downloading Grid on something else. Y'all know this world. This is the world we live in.
Yeah, and talking to us all at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's perfect. All right, so the rest of you, if you're not feeling like a slacker, maybe you'll share what you're doing because Alyssa's now set the bar at a certain level, and now she dares you to go across the bar.
Stop. No. I can
go. My Mondays, and I did this last year, usually our AT team planning meetings, and I love starting my week out this way. We take a look at our referrals for the week or from the last week, and I get some office time to just plan out the rest of my week. And so it's a nice way to ease into the week and feel organized for the week. So we decided we were going to continue this year doing our Monday meetings. And we met with our Tobii Dynavox reps this morning as well. And I was really excited because I had seen on the list, I know you commented on this on Twitter, Charlie Danger had mentioned that they have a new page set that they are trialing, I guess, in the UK. And so I asked both of our state reps if I could get access to that. So they said they learned about it at the same time as all of us. And so, but they are excited about it as well. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they can. Alyssa, have you found it in the page set central?
So no, we've made the same ask that you did. I did after I saw, and I had asked Charlie to like, okay, that's great. I see the homepage, but like, can you show a video? And he was very gracious to do that to kind of see. So it's the thing that I dislike the most about TD Snap that they may have fixed in terms of the motor planing element. So I'm excited. No, I got the same answer. Well, that we were surprised to hear that too. So when we have access, we'll be happy to share. So he said fall. So again, like me being in Florida where I don't have a fall season, like what does that mean? Like,
I'll
does that
help
mean I
you.
get it in December?
Fall starts Thursday. So that sounds like the end of the week to me.
So, and I think he was just going off of what his person had told him. So I sometime before December is my hope.
And they are looking for feedback. So I guess that's kind of why it's just sort of a trial run right now. They're looking for feedback. They want to develop it. They want to make it better. So that was exciting. And so I was like, well, sign me up. I'll give you some feedback. We have 20 licenses in our district of TD Snap. I'll start rolling that out. Just to give me those pages. So we'll see.
Nice. What
So.
and I saw the interaction between Charlie and I saw Alyssa say that online, but I didn't go deeper than that. So if you were to give me kind of the 30,000 foot view of what makes you excited about these changes, what would it be?
Well, I think it's more that motor planning component. I think they're trying without like I think Alyssa, you maybe you interpreted it differently, but I think it's sort of that motor planning piece like LAMP has, where everything is within a few page sets. They have like 2,000 or some vocabulary words within a few page hits, just one motor plan for each word. Trying to get some of that. Everything is so buried in TD Snap in their current vocabulary. There's just so many different ways to get to words. There's pictures that all mean the same exact thing. So, well, I shouldn't say mean the same thing. They are the same exact picture for different meanings. And so it's really sometimes very confusing for individuals that are using that vocabulary. So,
Yeah.
Especially if they're not literate. It just assumes a lot of literacy.
Yeah, and they have some great things. Like I do love you know, some of the learning supports that they have built into their products. They have a visual timer, they have push sends. Like, you know, I think it's really nice to have some of those things in there. I do like a little bit of the phrase-based conversational things for things that are repetitive and come up, and I think that they do that well too. It's just that when you want to build a core-based sentence, it is just really, really tedious.
It's super arduous to get there. And I think because of where their price point is, you know, they are, what is it, like 40 something, $50 total maybe as an AAC. Yeah, as an AAC app, you know, when you look at that and you compare it to others who do have some good motor planning layouts, you know, to me, part of it is that bridging the gap for kids who maybe don't have an insurance that's going to cover it quickly and easily, but for which I would be more inclined to go somewhere else because of the motor planning element, like whether that's a LAMP Words for Life or a touch chat with Word Power, because of how easy it is for kids to get to the sentence building portion of the world. I don't know if you want a challenge, try on TD Snap to build a that is conversational with somebody else. It's a big ask, and that's given, again, like Kelly was saying, some assumptions about their literacy level. It's a huge ask. So I think if we could build in the motor component, especially because it seems to be one of the main ones that comes our way for kids who are using eye gaze, because they go to the eye, 15 or 16. And then what comes with it is TD Snap, and which is great, but then we end up with pages that are in an attempt for someone supporting them to make it easier on them. They sometimes make the programming even more confusing in an attempt to make it better. So I think if we could start from the premise, even for eye gaze users, of something that was motor planned to begin with, I think we would have more success long term.
Yeah, I would say the motor planning, and then like the ease of use when you look at how many hits to get to it. So even if it does have the same motor plan, if you have like 9 hits, that's really hard. But I wonder how they're gonna deal with, like, I don't know. I'm curious to know more about it, because I'm wondering, like, semantic compaction is there for a reason. And if they don't have that, then even if they have the motor plan, it's still 9 hits away. I don't know. So it'll be I'm curious to see it.
And the 9 hits makes it not really motor plannable.
Right.
You can only store chunks of 3 and 4, really.
Right.
So.
Right. So we'll see. Well, that's cool. So you're on the pilot, you're like piloting it, or you're giving feedback?
I asked. I wouldn't say that I'm on yet. I'll give you an update when I do get those pages. But
Okay, okay, that sounds good.
Jennifer, the trick for you and Alyssa, and even Lauren right now, and Kelly, is to say, yes, I'm on the pilot, and now we've recorded it and it's out there. We'll snip that part out, and then you'll be assigned to the pilot. It's as easy as that.
if only.
That's
Yeah.
really good.
I
I always wonder, like, how does that? It's so funny that the reps that you're all talking to they found out the same exact time you did. Like, then I start to think about what's going on. Like, what's the working behind the scenes that lets something like that happen that everybody doesn't know until everybody knows.
I will go on record and say I'm not sure that Charlie was supposed to blast it out there on Twitter.
That's where I was getting towards too, was this really supposed to be blasted out there in any way, shape, or form? I'm glad he did. I think it's awesome. The guy's got danger right in his name. So, I mean, what are you going to do? He's a wild card.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, and again, they didn't scold him and didn't tell him to take the tweet down. In fact, he probably, knowing him, got permission before he put that video up. All it does is help build the anticipation of it. So I'm fairly certain that even if he didn't ask permission beforehand, they're not going to scold him too hard on it. But
yeah, I agree. Look how excited it has all of you. You're excited for it.
I think when it comes to anything like that, I do wonder, I know they have any organization, like, let's pull this apart from the TV Snap world, but like any organization has some test grounds that they run before they're going to drop something new. And I have seen times, not this one only, that people who work for the organization find out at the same time. And it always kind of makes me wonder, like, okay, well, if they didn't know, like, how it makes me wonder about the structure of the company in terms of implementation.
Yeah, I think what it puts a light on potentially this idea that the programming side and the R&D side is somewhat disconnected at times from the sales / implementation side, whatever you want to call that side. Marketing, yeah, that other side. And so
on point with marketing, but the follow through is sometimes lacking.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think any of those things are kind of a snapshot into the world of some of the companies and how that works.
I think it's interesting to the influence that social media has had, and certain social media influencers on the conversation. And I think that these different manufacturers of any AT equipment really have to really think about that now more so than they ever have in the past. And so you can get this big hype from somebody like Charlie just, posting something somewhat innocently onto social media. And they've also received a lot of backlash from other social media sort of influencers on their products as well. So it's interesting how that is influencing the world of AT right now.
Yeah. And then in that sense, it makes our little tiny field not that much different from issues you see on social media in general. A leak for a movie, a TV, whatever, those kind of bigger things that you see. This is not that much different. It just strikes us like, oh wow, there's like this issue here in our
well, and also how easily something can get out there without even a lot of research or, I don't know. I think the vetting process has to be, it's changing, and you can't just like anything in the news, you can't just take what you read and assume it to be best practice or true. And so how do we filter through all of that information? And all of us that are here we know a lot about AT, but for a lot of people that are in smaller districts and don't have an AT person or just sort of following along, how do they filter through that content and know truly what is good best practice and what is just something that is one person?
Right. What is noise on the internet versus best practice? Yeah.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Please, of course.
Rockford. So we are lucky with ESSER funding that we were able to purchase a bunch of stuff last year. For the first time, we actually have stuff. So our issue is with our stuff is that our minute our SLPs or our teachers or anybody find out that we have stuff, they want all our stuff. But we want to be able to talk about our stuff and to show our stuff and to have, but we don't want to create a library that is available to the public, because the minute we make it available to the public, we won't have any of our stuff yet. But we also do want our stuff to get out to people. So we're in this dilemma of how do we create a library but not have it be all, no, you know, all, everybody sees everything, but yet how do we keep, so how do we do this? We've never had stuff before. So how do we go about limiting control, but yet also letting people know that we have stuff?
What a great question. And I love that we're just going to keep calling it stuff. And I refuse to
Stuff.
call it anything besides stuff right now, just stuff. Because I
Just
think that's really
stuff.
great, because it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what, I am curious what you got, but I'm going to let that curiosity just kind of push down for a minute. You know, it's the age old issue with kind of lending equipment. It's that balance. It's always a tightrope of, ideally a lending center should have nothing sitting in it. I know Naomi's here and she's heard me say that 9,000 times. Our lending center is good when nothing's in it because everything's out. That's a good thing. But there is that balance of making sure that it gets to everybody who needs it. What are your thoughts? Alyssa, you jumped on. I saw your mic come right on.
Well, I don't know if that it had been turned off, honestly, but I do have thoughts. So what I started to do, because we do have stuff in house, but we do not have stuff. We have a small, very modest thing, but partially because we do have a very nice statewide lending library for more expensive things. So we are fortunate in that regard. But what I've started to do is highlight things in presentations that I give, but always tie it back to what our district process is. So I have never said you have to be going through the screening process in order to borrow something, but I have limited who can borrow. So if an SLP calls me up and is like, hey, I want to try this out with a kid, awesome, great. They've been through lots of our trainings. OT, same way, PT, same way. But I also try to do a good job of just kind of highlighting here are some of the resources that we have access to. If your team isn't sure what to try next, and you've tried some things, here's our AT screening process. And it may be that as a part of that screening where I or one of my coworkers come and do an observation, we recommend, hey, have you ever tried Co-Writer or this or that, whatever is part of our little s stuff. But for something that's larger, that would be like a data implementation kind of thing, chances are it's going to be somebody that is in our process. So in terms of like tracking it and not checking out to any and everybody, I've gone that route. And then there are things that are universally available, like we have district-wide Snap and Read, and I talk those up to the nth degree on our website. It's in my email footer, like everywhere I can, that kind of talks about here's the things everybody can access. And then if you need more than that tier 1 level of support, here's the process. I don't know if that helps.
And I'm guessing the stuff falls closer to a tier 2 or 3 support.
Sometimes, yeah, their stuff or my stuff.
I'm going to say either their big S stuff and your small S stuff. I'm going to
Sometimes
guess it's all
not
the same.
though. Sometimes it's like I need to try out some pencil grips, and that's to me a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I would think if you're using ESSER funds, it's not pencil grips.
Yeah, I've got to think it. Can you give us a taste of stuff now? Now I just need to know. Give me a stuff example.
The blue,
The blue too.
Perfect. Okay.
And then we've got the kitty. We didn't have
the dog.
Yeah.
And so we had cobbled together a bunch of these. We had a bunch of these, but now we have a whole cabinet full of animals and switch stuff.
I was gonna say, y'all need to find yourselves a robotics team and get them adapting toys.
We've got
Yes,
some of
where
them.
are you? Over here.
Yes.
But we got toys from toys and switches and things that we've because we went from having just a lot of communication stuff with iPads and apps to now we actually have other things that we can try to help with our students. But it's more, but do you have like I'm looking for like a website or something, or how do you?
Something like a database.
Like a database, how do you?
It's like database where you can like pull it off a shelf, kind of, and put it somewhere. So you know
Okay.
only a few things.
So an
what-
organizational strategy for your stuff.
for your
Right.
stuff. So what I have used, and I see Cassie's hanging out here, but not on camera, is a modified version. Ah, there she is. A modified version of something that she shared on the Quiet Listserv 7 years ago. I don't even remember, Cassie.
A little while ago.
A little bit ago, but it's based in Google Sheets. So, and then what I have taken and done with that is instead of the kind of front facing thing it was using, I use Google Data Studio to make the front facing portion of it, which basically just talks about what's available, but it's all, mine is based all in Sheets.
I really want to work on the Google database end of things, and I just haven't had time. So it's like sitting here on my list. But yes, I'm glad you got that to work. I'll be picking your brain.
So could you say it again?
What's the front part?
The front part was Google what?
It's based in Google Sheets. And I have a backup version of the original that Cassie had shared on the Quiet Listserv that I can send via Google. I can share it with you. And it's basically a series of interwoven sheets. Cassie, I'm doing a really horrible job of giving your
No, you're good. You're good.
Try.
I've actually reworked the directions some and am going to be updating those in some regards because some things have changed. And people have made recommendations and some things to make it different as well. But basically you end up with a Google spreadsheet that you put all of your items in. You can give them a number, you put the item description in, you can put a picture of it in. And then once that's done, it feeds a bunch of other sheets that then show you like what's all checked out. What do you have available for like headphones, switches, switch activated toys, communication devices, and it kind of breaks it all out for you. So then, and you can hide things kind of in there too for yourself, but that way you have one place that everything is. And as people check it out or in, you can keep track of that. And then people can also see what you have.
So can we put our address in the chat and then you share it with us that way? Would that be the easiest way of doing it?
Sure. And if you want to send the version that you have that has like the Google pretty end there too, that'd be great.
I think I might be able to do that.
Okay.
So that's one component of it. So that's your internal tracking.
It's
Have you
both.
had a thought about how you're going to manage the stuff in and out? Like Kelly's comment in the chat, loan periods, how it gets to people, those kinds of nuts and bolts things. And Jennifer, I saw you. I'm sorry, I jumped right in as you were putting your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so we're in our district is around 20,000. I think Rockford, you're kind of around that, somewhere around that. Somewhere.
About 28,000.
Yeah. So one thing that I would check into, like the Google Sheets are great. We have asset tags on all of our equipment, and we manage over 1,000 pieces of equipment in our district, and we have a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff on our shelves, but also a lot of stuff out. And so we do use just a Google Sheet, but we have tried various other tracking. Our library, our LMS system, they check things in and out. That did not work for us. We now as a district are moving to an asset management system that is going to be district wide. And the benefit of that is that if any of our stuff ends up on a table in the workroom for free, or any of our stuff is anywhere in a building, anybody with access to that asset management system can then take that code and they'll know, oh, that belongs to the assistive technology department, and hopefully get it back to us. So I've been in the district for 6 years, and this has been something we've been talking about for 6 years, and it's still not solidified. I am much back when we were utilizing Destiny or the library system, that was not working. Now our entire district is going to this asset management system instead of everybody being in sort of little separate areas. And so our technology department is moving to this. So I would maybe, start with the Google Sheet just to get somewhere, but start having those conversations district wide with what are you using to track your assets, because I think there's a lot of benefit and we do tend to lose equipment.
So-
unfortunately.
We do have this little red mark on the bottom is our asset tag from Destiny. We do use all of that stuff. It's that system is so cumbersome and so not user friendly that it is. If somebody sees this tag, they just know they can't throw it away. They won't go any further than that. They just know they can't throw it in the garbage.
And those tags fall off, and I mean, there's just like, we even have an engraver where we will engrave the numbers on things just because, I mean, there's just oodles of issues, but I hated Destiny too, so I hear you.
Yeah. And
This is-
our iPads are in Destiny, everything that we own, that we have is in Destiny. We're just trying to do something that's easy for us to do while also telling people we have stuff, but not, because if we put out all of these cats within 3 days, well, they'll be out in various places, which is great, but the likelihood of us getting a lot of our stuff back without us asking, we don't have that practice within the district of giving it back. They don't like to give it back because they're always like, well, if I give it back to you, I'll never get it again. Well, unfortunately, that's sometimes always been true because we don't have a tendency of replacing stuff that gets broken. We have this ESSER money was fantastic, but we know that in 2 or 3 years when all these things are broken, the likelihood of us getting a replacement is going to be hard.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
the other conversation is this a permanent loan library that is going out and staying out? Or is this I'm loaning it for X period of time, at which point someone, that's the discussion that needs to be had, is purchasing? Like, we have kind of a set, it's not black and white, but a recommended dollar amount under which the schools are responsible for purchasing versus our office. And so there are things that fall under that dollar amount, lots of things that we would loan out because I don't expect them to have a Bluetooth sitting on their campus. But if a Bluetooth is found to be the solution, a lot of times the school has the responsibility to purchase it. So I think that's the other thing in making, I'm a policies and procedures person. So like making that very clear to teams, like this is not a forever loan. Maybe your district's decision is it is, but if it's not a forever loan, what are the guidelines for, like, how long can somebody keep it? What data are they expected while they're keeping it, those kinds of things, so that there is data to then present to whoever's going to purchase.
Right, and hopefully we've gotten to the point where last year we had, we're starting to get to the point where it says if they're using it on a daily basis or using it in the classroom, then it has to be in the IEP, specifically stated in the IEP, and then has to be purchased for said student. We haven't gotten there yet. We're getting there slowly but surely, but it's still, district is a little sometimes leery of that. So we're trying to get there because we know that if we don't do that, this kitty's going to end up somewhere and somebody's going to be using it all the time. But, when it breaks, then we have to, but if it's for a specific student, they're going to have to spend it, they know that they're going to have to spend it. So they're kind of always, they don't like it when we put specific things in IEPs because then they have to be responsible for it. But yet if we don't put it in the IEP, then if it breaks, then it's hard to get it for that. So we're kind of caught in this proverbial catch-22 of wanting to be specific, but yet not. Them not wanting.
And the other point is, you want to get a point to people, you want to get across to people in your school that this is equipment, this is stuff for all of us that's supposed to lead to some decision by your team. And Kelly put in the chat this idea of setting timelines for people and having them agree to that the minute you send them the stuff. Like, hey, you're agreeing right now to keep this for 3 weeks, and then you're going to send it back to us. And then, maybe it's as simple as pre-scheduling an email in your account to send out in 3 weeks, like, hey, that thing is due tomorrow, or maybe not tomorrow, maybe on Monday, whatever, you give them a couple of days. But having them remember that, because those become the issues. Because like you said, I mean, a lending center that struggles to get things back, well, you're not going to have anything else. You're only have to worry about this one time, and then it's all gone, and then you don't have to worry about it. And that doesn't make sense. We want to keep this going. We want to have people access this. It's such an interesting topic because it's this idea of what are the, it goes back to Alyssa's comment about talking to people about your process and kind of what's your actionable step from this. You used the little cat for 3 weeks. What'd you find out? How does that fit into our process from you as a team to facilitate to make sure that a student's needs are met? Every time I think of this kind of sliding deadline of when things get back, makes me think of a student I worked with where I wasn't even working with him. I was working with a classmate, but he came up and he told me, he had all the right lingo. He said, check this out, check out my switch. I'm trialing it. Wait a second, what cool. I like that. That's lingo. I like that kind of lingo. Cool. How's your trial going? And he said, it's going really well. Good. Because I've been trialing this switch for 9 months. My friend, I feel like you found the switch, my friend. And you weren't the student I was talking to, but suddenly that became very clear that we needed to talk to your team. It was an internal loan within the school. And so that switch just in essence became that student's. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I don't think that was the initial intent of the loan of that equipment. And I think a lot of that came because they didn't have kind of set procedures. And, Alyssa comments she likes procedures. I'm not a big fan, but I get the value of them. That's where that falls apart. Because what are you going to do now? That student is being successful. I'm certainly not going to take the switch from that student. So we need to find a way to repopulate the lending library with that same device so this student can keep what he has. Those are our actionable steps of how do we make sure a team at the end of this predetermined moment of time says, yes, this worked, no, it didn't, or we're not sure. I mean, those are our options, and how do we continue to move them forward? It's a great opportunity for you as a team to really get in there with people.
And in the past, we've always gotten them back when they don't work. You're right. When it does work is when
exactly.
we don't get it.
You should always be more concerned with the stuff you don't get back. That means it's successful.
Or
a bad thing will come back instantly.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it's in a filing cabinet or a closet. One of the
That's
two.
true. Good point. So that might be another new job for your team is you might have to go out on little scouting expeditions to your schools and just open closets every once in a while and say, hey, what's this? This looks like our cat with a cord sticking out the bottom of it.
What we ended up doing, if it's helpful at all, is with the spreadsheet, I always was able to put what building and what teacher had things checked out. And so what I always told them is if it's working, absolutely go ahead and keep it. If it's not, send it back, right? But then if I had a request for something that was already checked out, I didn't have any spares around, I could go in and see who currently had them, which then allowed me to quickly send out an email and say, hey, I'm looking for a switch activated cat. I see that you guys have had one checked out for a little while. Is it still in use? And before we did this, people used to like cling to things in their room, right? Because they were afraid if they gave them up, they would never get them back. And so what I discovered early on is they'd be more likely to give it up if they knew somebody else was looking for it. So those emails almost always came back with, oh yeah, it's either working really well or no, I don't need it. I can get it back to you tomorrow. And then usually at the end of semester and at the end of the year, I would send out an email to every person that had things checked out. Here's what you currently have checked out from the AT Lending Library. Please reply back and let me know, are you keeping it or are you returning it? And so we kind of had a constant idea of where everything was, which I was okay with because it doesn't necessarily need to be sitting on my shelf. I'd rather it was sitting in your room because at least then it might pop in your head to try it or to try it a second time, or, you had limited success, but as long as it's here, we'll try it one more time. So it didn't all have to be with me all the time, but I always knew where it was. So I could always reach out and say, hey, I'm looking for one of these. Do any of you have, is any of it just sitting on a shelf somewhere? And so it was a good excuse also for me to kind of check in with people on how it was going.
Yes, it's a great excuse for that, Cassie, right? This whole idea of, hey, I'm just checking in. There's no judgment and no pressure about your loan. It's just, hey, I'm going through my inventory and just confirming that A, you still have it, and B, you still need it. That's
And
it.
with, and with the spreadsheet where you can sort it out by person and what they have, and then you just do a canned, a canned email, a template in your email server. So then you can, just template it, copy and paste it in. Here's what you have. It really doesn't take all that long. I mean, sending those emails out probably took, to about 45, 50 people, and it probably took maybe about 2 hours. So really not bad. Now the onslaught of emails you got back sometimes took a little bit longer, but again, it's great communication and conversation starting.
Well, yeah, and it gets people into the mindset of your process also, and seeing you as a team member that can help them and continuing that conversation. And I'm a huge fan of assigning things to people. Make someone responsible for it. You are going with the assumption that you are borrowing this, you are responsible for it.
Well, and it was interesting. I don't think it was Mike that just said about going into rooms and opening closets, right? And seeing what's there. And that was also an interesting thing, because once the system was in place, I'd actually go into buildings that I knew had a large quantity of stuff. And we'd actually go in and we'd open the closet and I'd inventory everything. I'd take a picture, I'd put a label on it, but then I didn't take it, right? It didn't need to sit in my office. It could still stay in their closet, and they felt ownership. Like I wasn't taking their stuff. It was still there. But now that I had it in the database, at any point I could email them and say, hey, we're looking for a blank keyboard. I know you had one in your closet. Could we send it over to this building? So it just helped letting everybody start sharing around the 15 sites.
Yeah, I think that's great. And for your pile of stuff that you have, if I was to say to you, what is the number of items we're talking about? I am very interested in what you got, but I'm going to let that slide. But what's the number of things we're talking? Is it 100 things?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that could potentially be manageable through a Google Sheet to start, to get your process rolling. You said it has asset tags on it already. That's your way to track it. That might be a simple enough way in a sheet to just start this process and start working out some of the kinks while you look kind of in parallel with your IT department and just general asset management things you might have. The stuff that Jennifer was talking about, which I think is so critical, because we don't really think about, I guess we don't think about it till we have stuff, right? There must be some plan.
Yeah, the other thing to ask your district is what we found when I went looking for, I'd love to use the same system. They only wanted certain things of a certain dollar amount to be in their system. So they kind of pushed back on, which is why, I mean, like, I know I have things that we loan out that didn't meet that requirement, which is why I kind of went a different way. Which enabled, I guess, I would have loved to have used their system. I think at that point they were still using Destiny. So I don't know how much I would have really loved, but I think at making the request and saying, hey, these are the things, and it's not that they necessarily have a certain, that maybe they're under your threshold, but here's why I would love to have them in the same system. I wish, going backwards, that I had advocated, even though they came back with a no, and justified better, so that we weren't running two different systems.
Exactly. And then also there is an understanding across your school of how we track assets. Back to what Jennifer said before, and Jennifer, I saw your hand, but sorry, I had to jump in and say that. Go ahead. Sorry, I'll stop talking.
I was just going to also say, on our Google Sheet, we also track like the cost of things, and sometimes even like our asset, like requisition type sheets, those types of things. And it can be helpful. I mean, I think starting to have some of those conversations of needing some sort of a budget for your department and a replacement cycle. So, that helps us then go through our sheet and see how much we paid for something and how much we might need to budget if we need to purchase more. And it's all sort of at your fingertips. So our Google Sheet has some of that. We also have like drop down menus for like it's out for repairs, or it's been retired. And some of that, even knowing what we've purchased in the past, even if it's retired, well, what do we want to keep looking for? So some of those things can be really helpful if you're doing sort of that internal Google Sheet. And I can't remember what Cassie has all on hers, if some of that is in there or not, but it's been helpful to us to have some of that additional information on that same line as the item.
Because then as you go forward, like you said, Jennifer, if someone says, hey, we have extra money in our budget, we can give you $300. What is the most frequently borrowed thing? Is it a cat with a cord sticking out the bottom? Yes, it is. And you buy another cat with a cord. So I think that can be really helpful to see that. I think that's awesome.
I think part of our issue is we still struggle with who pays for it, because the sped dollars go to each school, so like each school will get $5 of sped dollars, but they don't see it as sped dollars. The minute it goes to that school, they see it as school dollars and not sped dollars. And so then we have to go, do we fight for that kid that's in that school for that $5, or do we go downtown into the admin building and, struggle for that, get some of their $5, or, then they say to us, well, we're caught in this school versus downtown fiscal thing every time we try to do something. So when you say replace it, that's where our struggle runs into, is they always say, put their nose, and not me, I'm not paying for it. So we'll continue that fight, but it is definitely that's probably why we're wanting to keep our stuff, because we know that we were lucky with ESSER. We know that's not coming around again. And so we want to use this to the best that we can for as long as we can, because we know replacement is going to be few and far between.
Yeah. Replacement could be few and far between unless you collect data that demonstrates we have to keep doing this. Right. And that's what makes that so important right now, is that you've been, if you were to give this an analogy, you've been thrown in ESSER life raft to buy stuff, but now you got to demonstrate that it was helpful to people across schools, across the whole district. Maybe that's the way to get these things out of that school budget line, is say, oh, this school, I can pull a report that says, here's the equipment you borrowed in this school. Look at how beneficial this has been to the students in your school. It makes it very personal for them to be able to recognize that this does have value.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You've answered a lot of questions.
Oh, that's fun. And I'll have you, and Mary, I saw your question. I'll go to you next, but it was funny because Kelly, before she left, she said she had an appointment to go to. She said to me, I want to find you what she said. Sounds like a special topic. One of our special events, setting up a loan library, what to do and what not to do. So I wrote it on my piece of paper. I'll add that to our topic list. So that was very good. But I wanted you to know that was happening behind the scenes. All right, Mary, Mary has a question about the ResNet K to 12.
The K-12 group is kind of doing assistive technology games and playground equipment. Well, I have a question. I looked at your stuff, Mike, that we were working on with Alt plus Shift.
Okay.
Okay, and then the math curriculum, which I thought that was really cool. But I mean, I asked Kalispell, my local district, and they are doing that, that math where you have a number sense wheel.
I don't work on their math project, so I'm going to shake my head, Mary, like I know what you're talking about, and then we'll move on from there.
Well, I was just wondering. Okay. Anyways, how to incorporate that, because they were looking at virtual reality, and there's just something called Prism Math, and I guess you wouldn't know that either.
Someone else, do you know Prism Math? Prism?
It's real world problems. They're addressing real world problems in the virtual reality format. And then
Mary, I can connect you to the person at Alt Shift who does their math project. How about that?
Okay, sure.
Put your email in the chat to me, and I'll make the connection.
All right, and then then I looked at Minecraft, and I thought like Australia is doing Minecraft on all curriculum, and I thought Minecraft was like kind of, it's good for some people because if they're gaming and that's all they're doing, but it's really putting that gaming thing, and I kind of want to get the kids out of the head, out of the computer head. Mm-hmm. And I just feel that Minecraft is putting them right in the computer head, and then that addiction kind of gaming thing. I'm kind of against it, but anyways, and then I looked at Lego Mindstorm and in the visual perception and everything that's involved in that, and Vanderbilt Frisk Center uses Mindstorm Legos to evaluate kids to get before they get in their program. So I'm kind of looking at that. And then playground equipment, Strider bikes, e-bikes, e-trikes and e-bikes. Well, Strider is offering it to adapt the bikes for free. If the person pays for the bike, and they will adapt it for free for anybody who needs an adapted bike.
Well, that's interesting to me. I just wonder what that means. Like,
But
what is,
I think that was be really good for playground equipment.
I'm pulling it up because I don't even know what a Strider bike is.
Strider bikes are like those balance bikes that have.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
No
they
wheels,
have
just-
balance bikes, but they also have bikes with pedals. So
Oh, they do.
yeah,
Back in
I
the
only know
website.
from like my little kids, my
yeah.
my personal, not my student kids, my biological children.
My actual little kids.
I got a lot of kids.
And then you
so-
can connect, you can also connect it, to another bike where they're riding in tandem.
Oh yeah, like the third wheel,
Third
like on
wheel.
the back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
third wheel tow, yeah. And there's a lot of different towing mechanisms you can use. There's a whole article on it.
I think that's really interesting, Mary. I like the idea of that. I guess my concern is, what does that modification to that bike look like? And who decides what that student needs in order to ride that bike safely?
Certainly
Um,
hope it's physical therapy involved.
Right. Well, yeah, I know Alyssa would chime in at some point. I was actually watching you, Alyssa, just waiting. But I think it's really interesting because, there's, what do I see there as an opportunity, right? That's an opportunity to connect groups together. Because I something in my gut says to me, Strider Bikes makes this statement without maybe understanding the depth of what they just agreed to do.
Right.
Right. It's like, yeah, well, of course we'll modify that. But what are they, in their mind, what is a modification? A bigger pedal? Like, where are they thinking their modification is? Where the minute I hear modification, I think a modified seat that's going to attach to that bike and provide some safety.
Right.
I don't know that that's what they're thinking.
Mhm. Well,
Lauren,
I
and all
mean,
the
I guess it's up to
700 different kids you've
it's up
seen
to
on
the
those, have you
OT
seen
or
it adapted?
PT to suggest the equipment, I think.
Yeah,
No.
and so that's what I would mean. I think it'd be really interesting to have that conversation with them, of someone thinking about, well, what does that really mean? Again, I think back to, my time in modifying those little battery powered cars and Jeeps and trucks and motorcycles and those kind of things. And probably the most fun ever, but working with the therapist to figure out, what does this child need positioning wise, access wise, to use this effectively.
Right.
And sometimes it was in essence a complete reimagining of that thing, whatever it was.
And I was at the bike festival called Wydaho, WYDAHO.
Yeah.
And there were all these adapted bike companies there. And we had an adaptive parking lot. So they were all physical disabilities, spinal cord injuries mostly. And there were kids there, but there weren't kids that were disabled. They were all adults.
Mhm.
But I just think that we could have a pediatric program with the Wydaho people too.
I mean, those start to become your conversations, is can those connections be made in the community, where therapists will volunteer time to work collaboratively with some of these groups to help them. I think a lot of the modifications that I had a hand in, I was lucky to be part of a school-based team that was able to point me in the right direction. And all I had to do was bust things and then refix them. But with a therapist always there working, because I think that's really the key to that is,
Yeah, and a lot of the people that were volunteering were therapists or
Okay, yeah, I think-
recreational outdoor people.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
all of that is awesome. Just as long as someone in the group has an idea of what's involved, and it's more than just padding a pedal or putting a seatbelt on a bike. Right. Those are the kind of things I instantly go to. I'm like, oh, I bet that's what people are thinking. Like, we've modified this bike because we took a giant Velcro strap and wrapped it around the entire thing. Well, you've done something. I don't know if you've adapted that bike, and I don't know if you've
Right.
thought that person's needs through, but you've done something, that's for sure.
Right, and then
Nice.
Dream Adaptive with out of Whitefish is really active. They're doing private lessons with kids. And so you might like want to look at that website, because we do mountain biking, we do paddle boarding, kayaking, water sports, winter skiing, both downhill and cross country. So
I think that's awesome. I love stuff like that. I love that recreational outdoor stuff.
so like you guys out east are doing, more the educational assistive technology, you're ahead of us, but out west, with that adaptive equipment, that you guys don't have out there. So I thought I might share it with you.
I feel like you're rubbing it in that you have cooler things to do outside is what you're doing. That's what I took from that.
Well, I believe that everybody should be outside more, and
Without a doubt. I
recesses is
agree.
very, very important.
And unfortunately, the problem that happens a lot with that, I agree with you, Mary, by the way, totally. We should be always thinking that thing. Those recreation accommodations fall nicely into a crack that no one pays for. And so those accommodations kind of languish there a little bit. And, oh, I wish I could modify my bike. I wish I could do mountain biking. I wish I could, I'll give you an out east example, Mary. I wish I could access the beach, but I can't get my wheelchair onto the beach.
Right.
So we spend a lot of time here talking to people about wheelchairs for the beach, those kinds of things. But who pays for that stuff becomes really tricky. Really tricky.
Easy Track wheelchairs out of Quebec are an incredible wheelchair. I saw.
That looks kind of like a tank.
No, it's just a really small, it's a K5.
Oh, which is treads? Does it have treads on it?
Yeah, treads
Yeah, it's
and
like a tank.
camber and just really, no armrest. But the guy goes out and he bales hay and he feeds his horses and everything else with this thing.
All awesome, right? Where I've seen some success with funding for those kind of things, not for pediatrics, unfortunately, but for adults, if that's a job accommodation. I've seen really successful ways that people have gotten that kind of equipment. If you're a farmer, you need a tracked vehicle to get into your farm to do things. That is a job accommodation. Adaptations to trailers and
It's not Easy
tractors.
Track, it's Track Z. Track
Still a
Z.
tracked vehicle like a tank, right? Still a tank. It's amazing.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's just a really. Can I show you this?
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. See how they have the caster wheel way in front
Yeah.
like that, and then it's cambered.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
those kind of
And
things
it's
are
just
awesome.
a really short, back. But anyways. Okay.
Those are very cool.
But I also did an e-trike with a nonverbal autism kid in 6th grade, and I used Elizabeth Nielsen's assessment, ALPS. She's out of Lund University in Sweden. I've been following her for, I don't know, since '99, when I met her at the World Conference, and she invited me to do research with her, but I had 2 kids, so I couldn't go. But anyways, he's totally oblivious to the environment.
Mhm.
So he really liked the e-trike because it was easy to pedal. And at first he was going backwards on the pedals, and then he had to strap the pedals on his feet, and then we got him to go forward. And he started in the first phases of steering, and you just steer with the handles are on right next to you. It's not up high.
Okay.
But he was getting, the hang of it, and it was like summer was over, and his mom was freaked out because she thought she'd never keep up with him, and he started running, as a risk. But I think that idea is, and if you look at Elizabeth Nielsen's data, is that the cognition and the beyond cause and effect is so great. That's you need the movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
anyways,
Cool. Thank you, Mary. Thanks for that information. Go ahead, Lauren. You got 2 minutes. Well, you got 4 minutes technically.
Okay, okay.
Ask away.
I have kind of a unique situation, and a student is got a lot of different needs, and the SLP is trying to get a mid-tech device funded through insurance. And I have never done this before. I've only gotten high-tech, accent iPad with app kind of communication devices through insurance. So does anybody have experience with that, or any resources you could share?
mid-tech.
I have not, Lauren. Insurance typically doesn't even cover the high tech stuff, so they don't typically cover the mid tech stuff. If it's something that is needed to access the telephone, you can use like the TEP program. Most states have a program, which is the telecommunications. What it all stands for. But that as long as it has some sort of voice output, which a mid tech device would. Sometimes it's a set amount though, but it usually is enough to cover those devices. And there's a copay usually, at least in our state.
Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, this particular student is using 3D symbols right now for communication, and there's something from Enabling Devices that the SLP is trying with him, and attaching the 3D symbol to a mid-tech device. So he has kind of like a 9 overlay of core vocab, and the student is aging out this year.
I was just gonna ask how old. That might
22.
be a Voc Rehab funder versus using insurance. If they're going to age out and you can make a connection between what they're going to be doing next and why they need that. I have gotten Voc Rehab to cover in places where it didn't make sense to use insurance.
And again, Voc Rehab has a little bit more flexibility, and as long as you can tie it to some kind of
what's next.
Yeah, what's the connection to it? I mean, Voc Rehab is pretty much going to believe anything that the team says because you're the one that's worked with that student. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way.
No,
Is
but
that you're
I
working
think
with
with
them.
with the right data, I've
Yeah.
never really had them say, no, we're not paying for that. And I've not asked for exorbitant things in the past, but I think is because they're aging out. I would definitely make the ask of Voc Rehab. The worst that they say is no, but I'd be really surprised, especially if you can make a link to whatever their transition goals are.
Exactly. And Tammy puts in the chat,
okay.
Tammy's got good things in the chat, Lauren, too, is check with the manufacturers or vendors and see if they have some suggestions. And then check the very bottom of what Tammy said is great. Reach
Yeah.
out to your community groups and ask them.
Yeah, we missed some. So we have a few grant deadlines, grants that have been really, really great for students that are transitioning. And we've done these before, like up to $1,000. And this device is about $450 or $500. But we missed our LEAP grant deadline, which is August 15th. And I'm like, oh, but the student is in his last year. And so the timing of that is not great for our students, but we can start planning for the ones that are their penultimate year.
Yeah. And,
So,
and reach out to
yeah.
I always loved the idea of community groups. I remember going with a team to the Rotary Club just to support them, our local Rotary Club, to explain what this student needed. And the student came and gave a presentation about what they needed and why. And they wrote him a check before he left.
Wow.
I mean, so
okay.
these groups will have money, and sometimes if you catch them and they're, again, it's a community group. They're looking to support the community.
Yeah.
And this was about, it was about $400 or $500, and they just wrote a check. They said, how much do you think you would need? And the mom was like, well, this is, I don't know, like $400. Great, here you go. And then off we went.
Yeah, so I would go to Voc Rehab first, and then if you
Yeah.
kind of struggle, then look at your Lions or pick
All of
steer
your
committee.
animal clubs, as I'll
Yeah,
call them,
pick-
your lions, your elks, the moose.
Pick
Okay.
a club, and again, I think most of them want to see what's going to happen because of that. So like they're the ones that want pictures to be able to show on their
course.
flashy brochures about what they
Right.
did share. And we are really good about being able to produce a story that is compelling.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
This situation at the Rotary Club got us invited to the spaghetti dinner at the end of the year, which was amazing.
Ooh.
And we got a picture in their little like newsletter thing that they gave out to their membership, which was awesome. I mean, again, it reminds them why they're doing stuff.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all great ideas. Thank you so much. I
Good.
knew I could count on you.
That's good stuff. All right, everybody, we've reached the end. We've done it. We got so much done today. Oh my, wow. Who needs
Feel
planning?
very
We can get-
accomplished. I
done.
think I should just like cut the rest of the day.
I'm giving you
I-
permission. Use this 30
Yeah.
seconds at the end. I give you permission to stop working for the rest of the day.
That'd be great.
There you go.
However,
You're welcome. I aim to help
it's
out.
not
My
gonna help.
pleasure. All right, everybody. Have yourselves a good week. If I see you on Wednesday for AT Chat, great. If I don't, have a good week for the whole week, and I'll see you next Monday. Adios.
Adios.
Yep.